It's the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro, CF Montreal Talk. Make it 3 wins in a row. Make it 3 clean sheets in a row in MLS action for CF Montreal. You can make it 4 if you want to include the win over Vaughan Azzurri in the Canadian Championship. Aaron Herrera, who played his best game of the season, he came up big. Quioto off the bench, he came up big as well. A game of 2 halves. Lucky to probably be scoreless and draw after the first half, but CF Montreal really poured it on in the second half. They're no longer last in the East. You don't have to worry about that. That's a thing of the past. By the way, the teams that are last and second last, they both fired their coaches earlier this morning. A team that won playing Losada ball, and maybe a turning point in the season was when a player talked to us about having a sit down and a talk with the coach. We'll discuss all of that and more on the day before CF Montreal plays Toronto FC in the Canadian Championship. We'll look ahead on that, and we'll also look back on their 2-0 win versus Orlando City on the weekend. Filosa and Falco joining me. They're coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, welcome. It is the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk, and I will bring in my partners in crime for the good and the bad, Jeremy Filosa and Gavino Di Falco of EMFC Razio, and of course, joining me right here on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk, reminding you all that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you can follow us on Twitter at SickPod, CFMTL. It was CF Montreal versus Orlando City in Montreal on Saturday night in front of a pretty nice crowd to honor Patrice Bernier, what at halftime, of course, was officially inducted into CF Montreal's Wall of Fame. Gentlemen, this is what your starting lineup looked like. All right, there you have it. Sirois is your keeper. A back 3 of Corbo, Waterman, Camacho, Herrera at right wing back, Lassiter at left wing back, Wanyama and Chouanier in front of the back line with Duke and Rhea in behind Chinoso Ofer. On the bench, Ketterer, Campbell, Quioto, Thorkelson, Hamdi, Saliba, Lapalainen, ZBG, and Sunusi Ibrahim. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tony.
Actually, we can say good afternoon because we are live and it is 12:03 p.m. So let's look back on this win. Guys, a game of 2 halves, maybe lucky to be scoreless and tied after the first half, but in the second half, they turned up the switch.
Yeah, well, it's been pretty much the same story that's been going on week in and week out since, they've turned things around. They sort of weather the storm early on in the game. Sirois makes a couple of key stops. After that, you get a couple of good opportunities, often the only good opportunities. They put the ball at the back of the net, being extremely opportunistic. And then after that, they sort of shut it down. They ended the game with 9 players able to defend out of 11. So they closed the door there. And it's been pretty much the same story week in and week out. The formula is working right now.
I agree with 100% with Jeremy. You know, Sirois comes up very big in the first half, make some good saves. But where was the Montreal in the first 25 minutes of the game? I saw Orlando was hungry about this game, but, you know, they closed down spaces after all. And the second half, Quioto, the magic man, comes on the pitch and everything changes. They won 2-0, and it's a huge win for Montreal.
There's a few things that I think happened in the first half, guys. Number one, this is a very average Orlando team that we saw. In my opinion, they're average. They're a team that could battle for a playoff spot. They'll be there. They might be in. They might be out. Mm-hmm. But they're a big team. And their guys wear on you. And I thought that it was not a very good first half for Rhea or Duke.
I agree.
I thought it was just average, not more than that. I thought it was not a very good first half for Wanyama either. So if I take a look at down the middle of the pitch, down the spine, I thought Camacho held up. Wanyama, not so much. The 210s, come see, come saw. I thought Choinière was one of the better ones in the first half. Also, guys, Chinoso Ofer, besides the fact that he has the height and he has the physicality and he can draw some players to him because it might take a couple of players to handle him physically or athletically, he's not much of an offensive threat other than that.
No. And you saw it, we saw it as soon as Quioto came in. The game changed instantaneously. You have that threat up front who's not only physical, as Ofer is also, but that has that, the threat that if the ball ends up on his foot, he's going to put it at the back of the net. The guy comes in at the 60th minute. They score at the 61st. They score at the 65th. I mean, it's, it's pretty clear to see how much they've missed Romell Quioto. Obviously, it's going to be a problem going long-term because with all these games back-to-back, Quioto's not going to be able to start all of them. He's not going to be able to play 90 minutes in all of them. So you do need secondary scoring from your strikers. We'll talk about maybe Lassie moving up to that position soon, a little bit later during the show. But, what a game changer, Quioto. This trade is probably the biggest steal in the history of this franchise. It was a huge trade. And coming in here, he just tied
a trade that was ridiculed by many MLS insiders, many reporters around the globe. Yeah. But
I don't know if it was ridiculed.
Well, the GAM was questioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people said, well, if they think Duke is going to come in and replace Mihailovic, forget about it. He's not.
But I was talking about the Quioto trade a few years back.
Okay.
But yeah.
Got it. I thought you were talking about Duke and Lassiter, which was the one that was ridiculed. The Quioto trade for Cabrera, of course, Quioto had his problems in Houston, but a change of scenery. He was a breath of fresh air for Montreal. You're right.
Goals.
That was a huge deal.
He's now tied with Marco Di Vaio in MLS team history.
Yeah, but at the same time, guys, Quioto is a free agent at the end of the year. But I'm pretty sure we'll talk about it like later on this year. But I'm telling you, Montreal didn't have a great first half. As you said, Tony, the front three, 0-4, invisible, Rea, same thing with Duke. They didn't touch a lot of balls in the danger zone. So, I mean, you look at the statistics, only after 45 minutes, 0.44 expected goals for Montreal. The only chance or half chance was that shot from Lassiter on his wrong foot. He took a chance with his right, so the goalie made a save, and there was like maybe a corner at the end of the first half. I think 0-4 won a battle in the 6-yard box, but it wasn't enough, guys. You play to win, and at the same time, you're hyped up. It's Patrice Bernier's day, and it was very, very flat after 45 minutes.
So Jeremy mentioned the trade with Houston to acquire Quioto, and I brought up the trade, of course, with Inter Miami to acquire Bryce Duke and to acquire Ariel Lassiter, which, guys, ever since they've made that trade they've been a different team. Absolutely. It looks like they found their player on the left side with Lassiter with his natural left foot. It looks like they found a guy who was really giving them a jump start at the number 10 position. And now Matko Miljevic is set to come back. So now all of a sudden, a position that you didn't have any depth in 2 months ago because of Matko's injury and prior to acquiring Bryce Duke, now you do. And I talked about that deal as well. And I'm happy to say that here on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk, we liked the deal. Not too many people around the league did, but I think we knew Montreal's reality maybe than people outside of Montreal, right? With all due respect to them and their work. We knew that Lapalainen, it didn't work on the left side. We knew that Choinière was a box-to-box and he wasn't a wingback. We knew that you needed more than Iliadis at the left wingback position, and Quizera hadn't played a game, and you needed a little bit more than him. So they get out now. Did we wonder if Lassiter was going to work as a wingback? Yeah, because based on what we heard, his preferred position was second forward and after that left wing. But it's worked out so far. Bryce Duke, it's worked out so far. The back line has held up. They have 3 clean sheets in MLS play. They have 4 clean sheets, once again, if you add the Canadian Championship. So, if I take a look at the makeup of this team, guys, over the years, and you correct me if I'm wrong, their best moves have come within the MLS.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Acquiring Quioto, an MLS deal. Duke, an MLS deal. Lassiter, an MLS deal. Kamal Miller back in the day, an MLS deal. Alistair Johnston back in the day, an MLS deal. Aaron Herrera, an MLS deal. I mean, where do you want me to stop?
Mihailovic.
Yeah, the other
Georgie.
guys that have come from Europe.
No.
Yeah, not so much. Not so much. Okay, so listen, we've talked ad nauseum about the fact that this trade is a turning point. And you know what? We said at the beginning of the year, this roster is unbalanced. You had 7 central defenders, 7. We knew they didn't have a natural left-footed player to play on the left side as a wingback. We knew they didn't have a 10 that had MLS experience. They added all of that, and right now it's a team that's more balanced. Losada has options now. We talked this morning about, what do we do now at the left wing-back position now that Lassiter has played 2 solid games there. He said himself that it's not his natural position, but the coach has given him offensive freedom to go up and support the attack. He's been doing it well. And, the coach said this morning, you know what, guys? I'm not a big fan of making players play on their wrong foot. So it seems as though the Lapalainen experience as a left wing back is over with. I hope so, because I think he can be so much more effective either as a winger on the right side or as a right wing back.
Well, it all depends on who the players are, right? If he was coaching Aaron Robin and he wouldn't want him to play on his off wing, we'd have a problem. He
of
wouldn't
course,
have
guys.
the same career, but I get his drift and I hear him.
Yeah, Tony, but you see, Lassie, when he gets to the box, he has no choice but to switch foots. And when the defender knows that, it's pretty much, it's dead in the water. So now he has options. Let's see where Lassie's going to play. But and Herrera, guys, I mean, at the moment we're recording this show, the All-Star team hasn't been named yet. But I'm expecting Herrera to be on the team of the week.
Gavino, his best game of the season. And speaking of switching foots, Camacho has a clear-cut chance, hits the post, it comes out, the ball ends up on Herrera's foot outside the box. He's got it on his right. He goes around Angulo, takes Angulo, puts the ball on his left, lets it rip. He was lucky, all right, because it goes off of Jensen, and you have yourself an own goal. But you know what? I liked his movement. I like the fact he wanted to take it to his second foot. I like the fact that he had the mentality that he wanted to let it rip and he wanted to go for goal. And he was rewarded for it, guys. He was. And 4 minutes later, he ends up setting up Quioto, which is a beautiful setup. But before we do, let's get to some of the substitutions if our great staff back at Master Control will bring them up. Okay. Quioto came in at the 60th minute. This is what you were alluding to, Jeremy, for Rhea. And at the 61st, they score. And at the 65th, they score again. And the other substitutions were 3 substitutions that were made one was made at the 80th, bringing in Lapalainen for Duke. And at the 91st, bringing in Campbell for Ofer and Thorkelson for Lassiter. Guys, I'm going to take you back a while now. I'll show some appreciation for Losada here, okay? Which I think we have over the past couple of weeks in their turnaround. You remember Remy Gard, guys? He used to leave, I don't know how many substitutions in his back pocket and not use them. It just didn't make sense. And Losada, when it comes to his substitutions, he's got a great knack of when to do them, and he knows that he's got to do a lot of them. So, for example, bringing in Quioto at the 60th was perfect. Taking out Rhea to bring in Quioto was perfect. Rhea was dying down a little bit. At the 80th minute, bringing in a runner like Lapalainen to replace Duke, would also worn down a little bit, and bringing in a couple of center backs to replace 2 offensive players at the 91st so that you're A, killing time, and B, setting up a wall.
Yep.
Losada got it right, guys.
Yep.
I agree. The changes were very, very good, very accurate. You're talking about Aaron Herrera, who, he played a very good game, like Jeremy said. It's pretty sure he's going to be on the All-Star team of the week. Herrera, great game. He pushed strong on his right side. Fantastic runs in the first and the second half. So he was incredible. And you're talking about the Quioto and Lapalainen. For me, Lapalainen, I think it's over. As a wingback on the left side, maybe he's going to have a start here and there on the right side, but I'm telling you, with the lack of offensive players right now, with Ofer not doing the job, I would be not surprised to see start Quioto on the left side and Lapalainen on the right side with Bryce Duke in the middle in the upcoming weeks.
Jeremy?
That's very interesting. Listen, finally, we got some pieces to work with. We got options here. It's exciting. My Twitter feed is it's reviving itself. People are actually sending me messages again because for weeks it was dead, Tony. But I'd like to go back to a certain point, okay? I want to go back to 3-4 weeks ago. I remember that we had a discussion, very interesting discussion with Rudy Camacho, who for me is a true defensive leader on this team. And he said to us, I had a meeting this morning with the coach, and we talked a lot about the transition game. He admitted that players were struggling to play the ball forward quickly, the way that Losada said. And he said to us, we have certain habits that we've taken from playing, the last couple of years with different coaches, Thierry Henry, Wilfred Nancy. And I think Rudy Camacho was able to convince his coach to say, let's meet halfway here, okay? Give these players here the opportunity to fall back on some habits that they've had and have worked well. But at the same time, we promise to move the ball forward quickly when we do have the opportunity. And I think at that moment, that talk, that discussion, that meeting changed everything. Because from then on, we've seen players that are less nervous, especially on the back line, when they do get the ball. Sometimes they do play it quickly, but sometimes they do also take the time to look in front and see what's ahead of them.
Jeremy,
I think that they've found a marriage now, and it's really it's looking
Jeremy,
a lot better.
I'm not going to disregard it, okay? However, let's bring up the final game stats for a second, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, look at these final game stats, all right?
Yep.
Montreal, 45.1 possession of the ball, and Orlando, 54.9%. Orlando, 13 shots to 7. On target, it was 3-2 for Montreal.
Yeah.
Why am I bringing up these stats, Jeremy? Because
I know why.
I'm not going to take away from what you just said and from what Camacho said, okay? But Losada ball is not a ball possession style contrary to what Wilfred Nancy had a year ago. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I bring it up is even though I'll put some weight into it, for me, Jeremy, the turning point is the deal to bring in 2 offensive players.
Of course.
That's more the turning point, Jeremy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because they still don't have possession of the ball for the most part. Yeah. But now they're scoring goals, and they're scoring goals because of more offense, more players in the right chair.
But at the same time, guys, every time they have a chance, a clear chance, it's a goal. Right now, when I asked Losada this morning, are you worried about that statistic? You don't get a lot of shots on goal, but you score a lot of goals. He said basically, we're concentrating on the defense right now because we gave up so many goals at the start of the season. So right now, we take the lead and then we manage the game. So I found the answer very interesting.
They're
Listen,
not beating themselves right now. That's what they're doing. They're not beating themselves.
No, that's it.
But I gotta agree, guys, that when you look at the stat sheet, and this has been a common theme over this stretch of games that they have been able to win, is that you're not going to be able to get 3 shots on target and 2 goals night in and night out. I mean, those statistics, you cannot sustain them long term. Okay, they absolutely need to create more scoring chances. I've said this week in and week out. The ball possession, Tony, I'm not so worried about because they've been able to take the lead, at midway through the game or about these last couple of games. So that's normal that you're going to concede a little bit of ball possession. I'm curious to see what that ball possession would be in a scoreless game going into the last 10, 15 minutes to see if that would even itself out. But I do agree, guys, that they need to take more shots and they need to take more quality shots because this is not sustainable long term.
But now everything's going to change with Quioto healthy on the field. He's going to be able to attract and to draw 3 players. That's what Lassiter said to us this morning. With Quioto, everything changes. He draws 3 players, so that gives more time and space for wingbacks like Herrera or Lassiter to jump up in the game and in the play and to create some crosses and some grade A scoring chances. So I'm pretty sure this statistics is going to go up in the next few weeks.
Yeah. So, guys, the 2 worst teams, statistically speaking, in the standings in the Eastern Conference are the New York Red Bulls and the Chicago Fire. The Red Bulls lost at home 1-0 versus Philadelphia Union on the weekend. Chicago lost 3-0 in Nashville. Consequently, both their coaches have been relieved of their duties. The New York Red Bulls have fired coach Gerard Struber. And although it's a so-called mutual parting of ways, is the way it was announced. And the Chicago Fire have relieved Ezra Hendrickson of his duties. I guess we don't have to worry about
Frank Klopas. Frank Klopas is taking over. God never sleeps. God never sleeps.
God never sleeps. Yeah.
It's sad because the Red Bulls made the playoffs in 2021. They made the playoffs in 2022. So basically this year nothing was clicking. And with Chicago, they have some interesting players like Shibilko, Shaqiri, Kamara, Chris Mueller. But you look on paper, it's a very good team. But right now, nothing seems to get going. And, let's talk about Toronto in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about them right now. Canadian Championship, of course, tomorrow night, BMO Field in Toronto. And then Toronto is going to come here on the weekend, and they're going to play versus CF Montreal. Guys, so let's get to it. Who's making the trip to Toronto?
So pretty much everybody from what we're hearing, except maybe for Piet and Pantemis.
That's my information. Pantemis and Piet are not doing, are not making the trip. The other players are available.
So Pantemis, from what the coaches told us, maybe Saturday. So slowly but surely for Pantemis, he won't be there in Toronto for tomorrow's game. Matko Milovic will be back in the starting lineup. Not starting lineup, but he'll be dressed. They hope to get him a few minutes for the game tomorrow. But guys,
by the way, if I can, he was involved in an intra squad last week, and the reports that I got were very, very good. I was told he's another category, so he impressed last week.
Good, because it's his turn. I mean, it's his time to shine right now, and
you guys expect Logan Ketterer in goal tomorrow, or they're going back with Sirois?
I think they got to go with Sirois because it's Toronto. Because it's a do or die game, because it's going to be a tough opposition, and for the first time, I heard in the voice of a head coach here in Montreal the importance of this game. Okay, guys, they cannot go to Toronto and lay an egg. This is a huge game. It opens up the way all the way probably to the final of the Canadian Championship, because after that you have no MLS teams in your way. So. Listen, my opinion, my philosophy, what I would do, guys, okay? I would try to start the best 11 guys that I speak to my players, and the best 11 I think are ready to start, I start them. My game where I would make the rotations.
You got to be careful, Jeremy. They just played on Saturday night.
I know that, Tony. So, you got to speak to your players. You got to know who's ready to go, how many minutes they can give you. But the game that I would choose to make my rotations would be Saturday. Saturday is the middle game of the 5-game stretch, okay? You're playing at home, you're playing Toronto, but it's not the end of the world. It's still early in MLS. I understand you're playing before your fans on Saturday night at Saputo Stadium, but still, the logic for me is do everything you can to win tomorrow night's game. And on Saturday, even if you draw or whatever, even if you drop the game, it's not the end of the world. I'm very curious to see what kind of philosophy they're going to go with.
Guys, against Toronto, it's going to be a very tough game, even though Toronto's not having a great season, only 2 wins. I know I called the game on Apple TV a couple of weeks ago. They didn't impress me. They CJ Sapong, they made a trade for CJ Sapong. They had a hard time to score, so he's going to bring a lot of upside as a number 9. Same thing with Diamande. He's back from injury, but at the same time, the two great players on the pitch is Bernardeschi and Insigne, and right now, they're not delivering a lot. So it's going to be very interesting who's going to play against them. Is it going to be Herrera still or Zach Broguiar? And on the left side, for me, it's going to be Lassiter until the end of the season. So I wonder who's going to play against those two players. If those two players have a great game and are able to shut down Insigne and Bernardeschi, well, basically, you're supposed to win the game.
My feeling, my gut,
yeah,
and we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll know Tuesday night for sure, is that they're going to put some fresh players into the lineup. It's just my gut. And I hear what you're saying, Jeremy, and I understand the logic completely. But I just think, once again, they will put more value in a regular season game than they will in a Canadian Championship game.
Well, I really don't agree with that. I was talking to Vanni Sartini, head coach of the Whitecaps. These last couple of weeks, I had a chance to speak to him a lot because I was doing Vancouver Whitecap games, and he said, our rotations are going to come in MLS. There's time in the MLS, but Canadian Championship, there is no time. You need to win, absolutely. And for me, the Canadian Championship, especially that it happens early in the season, should always be priority number 1. But as you mentioned, Tony, and I tend to agree with you, the philosophy of this organization has always been that the Canadian Championship comes second. That's when you make your rotation. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Tony, I'm willing to live with certain rotations. Others, not so much.
No.
Now the problem is, Tony, is, I'm really happy that Quioto came in for 30 minutes. That gives you an opportunity maybe to give him some minutes again on Tuesday. Happy that Lassie got a few minutes. Maybe he gets. But are these guys ready to start right away, right now, in a game that's a do-or-die game? I don't know. The fact also that Matko wasn't dressed on Saturday, what does that mean? How many minutes can they actually give him? The coach said today we have to take it slowly with him. So I don't know where these rotations are going to come from.
Well,
Tony.
don't forget that Joel Waterman's going to be suspended next Saturday, so for sure he's going to start tomorrow night in Toronto.
So I'll tell you what they can do. Listen, I'm not saying I would do this, right? But when you say I don't know where the rotations are going to come from, they could easily put Sanusi up top.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
sure.
At
the same time, he deserves a chance. 0-4, we didn't see a lot of him in the last 3 weeks. But if Quioto is like 80% tomorrow night, are you going to start with him? I don't know. I would keep him on the bench and, like you said, start Sunusi and see if Toronto takes the lead or Montreal takes the lead, and then you manage the game. But like you said, Quioto on the bench, brings a lot of energy in the second half.
Listen,
Hamdi,
I think
Hamdi might end up playing for Rea.
No, I don't think so.
I
don't think so. You know what?
Guys, Sean Rea.
He's in the doghouse right now, MD.
Okay, hold on a second. You guys know. You guys know how much I love Sean Rea. It's nothing to do with Sean Rea per se as a player. It's been brought up a couple of times that Rea doesn't usually start 2 games in a row or play a lot of minutes, or if he does, he still needs to add a little bit of muscle mass and acquire a little bit more endurance. It would be 2 games in 3 days, guys. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday you're playing. Sunday you're off. Tuesday you're playing. He did play 60 minutes. He came out.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
They're preserving him. So maybe I think he could play one half of the game, not the whole game.
But guys, Montreal will be underdog tomorrow because Toronto has all the pressure in the world. They got to deliver. They got to show something in front of their fans. They're playing at home. They got all those superstars and those veteran players on the pitch at the same time. I'm sorry, guys, but right now the pressure is on Toronto.
Yeah, but listen, I think, Toronto has a situation where they have star players at certain positions and they need those individualities to win games, whereas Montreal is more of a team. So it's completely different philosophies. We'll see what happens. But, the fact that they were able to bring Rea on the bench after 60 minutes, that's a luxury. The coach told us this morning that Bryce Duke was getting tired at the 80th minute and needed to make him come out. So we'll see how they manage that. But where I do see a rotation, And Sanusi's a possibility up top. Maybe Hamdi in the middle of the park.
I have another one too. I wonder if we're thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So Campbell gets a start, I think, in the back, in the center back. Maybe we give Corbo a day off. Maybe Camacho a day off, or if not, then they get the day off on Saturday, right? Because you're not going to be able to start all 3 games. So if you sit, let's say, Corbo tomorrow and Camacho gets the start, or it could be the other way around, and then you can sit the other guy and give Campbell. I think Campbell can give you 2 games in a row because he hasn't played in a while, but he's played minutes over the last couple of games. So I'm confident that he'll be ready to go.
So hear me out before you start screaming at me. I can see Broguillard playing for Herrera. Guys,
Saturday.
Who ran more than Herrera on Saturday? But Jeremy, you got to understand something. Yeah. Soccer is a lot about recuperation and regeneration.
I agree.
This is a team that has had a ton of injury problems this year. When you squeeze the lemon and there's very little juice, it's probably not a good idea to squeeze that same lemon a couple of days later. It's probably a better idea to get a fresh lemon that you've had in the fridge and start squeezing that one.
I'm just telling you, I'd rather squeeze it tomorrow than Saturday. That's all. Yeah. We're just squeezing it at a different time.
Yeah, but don't forget the rule. Don't forget the rule. Every team has to have like 3 Canadian starters at the beginning of the game. So probably Sirois for me. Like I said, I'm comfortable with the Broguillard because Herrera might he's maybe not 100%, and maybe Herrera or but it's going to be very interesting. Anyways, Chouanier is going to be there, whatever.
We haven't talked about Saliba, guys. We could talk Saliba could get in, guys.
Yeah,
get in.
Well,
question. Just because I was doing the Vancouver game and it just slipped my information. Was Saliba dressed on Saturday?
Saliba was dressed on Saturday.
He was dressed on Saturday. Okay.
Guys, 18 guys only available. It's not 20 guys. Canadian Championships, different rules, I think.
Actually, let me just check. Let's bring up the subs at the beginning of the starting lineup. Let's bring it up. I'm pretty sure that he was on the bench, guys. Yes, he was.
I just did.
All right.
He was there. Okay, fine. So Gavino brings up an important point. Okay,
18 players.
Canadian Championship, 18 players only. You cannot dress 20 players. And another thing that we haven't talked about, and we just mentioned it now, 3 Canadians need to be on the starting 11. So that may affect decisions that Losada takes. We talked about, for example, which keeper gets to start on Tuesday. He might have to go with Sirois simply because, depending on what other option he has on the park, he might not have those 3 Canadians right away. So this is a puzzle. It's a puzzle.
Rhea can play the first 40. Rhea can play the first 45.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say Chouanier as a number 8, Sirois on goal, and Zach Broguillard on the right side. I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, Wanyama's another guy that we know, guys. If he plays every 3 days, he's not efficient.
But guys, do you find it a little bit awkward that a final, Toronto against Montreal, is being played in the quarterfinal? At the same time, it doesn't make sense,
That's the draw. It is what it is. You can control what you can control. You can't control what you can't control. Anyway, guys, look, I know we're going to have a lot of reaction to this. Of course, the game goes on Tuesday night. And if all goes well, we'll be back on Wednesday to bring you another edition of the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk, reminding everyone you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And follow us on our Twitter handle at SickPod, CFMTL. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.